Imagine waking up one day to find your home, your sanctuary, invaded by a homeowners association that thinks it can control everything. The grass you planted with such care, destroyed. The fence that protected your family, torn down. Your land, your story, your life treated as if it belonged to them. Today, I'm going to tell you 10 shocking stories of HOAs that crossed every line, invading properties and lives with unbelievable arrogance, only to be crushed by twists so epic they'll leave you speechless. Stay until the end, because the final story will make your jaw drop. Are you ready? Take a deep breath, because this will blow your mind. First story. It was a spring morning in Arizona, and Clara, a 72-year-old widow, gazed out the window of her countryside home. Her backyard, filled with roses she planted in memory of her husband, was her refuge. But that morning, the roar of tractors shattered the silence. The neighborhood HOA decided, without warning, to turn Clara's backyard into a parking lot for their gala parties. They arrived with machines, ripped out the roses, and the HOA president, with a smug grin, said, "This is for the good of the community, Grandma." Clara felt her heart clench, the petals crushed under the workers' boots. But she swallowed her anger and pulled out an old notebook of her husband's. Guess what she found? Clara wasn't just a widow. Her husband owned a construction company that had funded half the neighborhood. Clara called her lawyers and discovered the HOA had forged documents to claim her land. On the parking lot's opening day, as members toasted, the police arrived. The twist: Clara not only reclaimed her backyard but demanded the HOA replant every rose, under penalty of a $100,000 fine. Today, Clara's backyard is a free public garden, and the HOA they're pulling weeds as part of their punishment. Second story. In a small Georgia town, Lucas, a biologist, lived in a house by a crystal-clear lake. He studied rare turtles, there, breathing in the fresh waters sent every morning. But the local HOA decided the lake was perfect for an exclusive aquatic club. Without permission, they set up buoys, charged admission, and turned Lucas's lake into a public pool. He tried to argue, but the HOA leader laughed. "You and your frogs don't call the shots here." Lucas felt rage burn inside, but he stayed calm. He knew something the HOA didn't. The lake was protected by state environmental laws. Lucas contacted the Department of Natural Resources, and within a week, inspectors arrived with hefty fines. The twist: Lucas redirected the water flow to flood the HOA's club, while the lake was declared an ecological reserve. The HOA paid $150,000, and Lucas now gives free turtle lectures at the lake. The quote he used in court: "Nature always finds a way to fight back." Third story. In Oregon, Sophia, a vintage car restorer, kept her treasures in an immaculate garage. The smell of grease and the shine of hoods were her passion, but the HOA decided her garage was community space and turned it into a meeting room, installing tables and chairs. Sophia found her locks changed and her cars exposed to the elements. The HOA president said, "You don't need all this space, sweetheart." Sophia swallowed the humiliation, but her eyes gleamed with a plan. She was the daughter of a real estate tycoon who owned the neighborhood's land. With one phone call, she proved the HOA had violated lease contracts. The twist? Sophia canceled the HOA's land lease, forcing them to dismantle the room. Her garage became a car museum, and the HOA now meets in a rented basement, paying dearly for their mistake. Fourth story. In Colorado, Daniel, a farmer, woke to the sound of chickens on his rural property. But the neighboring HOA built a concrete wall around his farm, claiming it blocked the view of their upscale neighborhood. They destroyed Daniel's fences, and the HOA leader mocked, "Farmers have no rights here." Daniel felt his blood boil but grabbed an old family map. Guess what he found? His farm sat on Native American land protected by federal law. He contacted the government, and the wall was deemed illegal. The twist: the HOA paid $800,000 in fines, and Daniel turned the land into an indigenous cultural center, where the HOA now does volunteer work. As a local elder said, "The land always speaks louder than greed." Fifth story. In South Carolina, Maria inherited a private beach, where the sound of waves tied her to her childhood. But the HOA decided the beach was too big for one person and opened it as a paid club, with lounge chairs and noisy parties. Maria tried to protest but was ignored. She felt the salt of her tears mixed with the sea, but then she remembered something. Maria was an oceanographer who knew maritime laws. She proved the beach was protected by coastal regulations. The twist: Maria sued the HOA, won control of the club, and turned the beach into a sea turtle sanctuary. The HOA now pays to keep it clean, and Maria smiles every time she sees the turtles swimming free. Sixth story. In Washington, Alina, a botanist, tended an award-winning garden, the scent of lavender filling the air. The HOA decided the garden was a waste and paved it for a community parking lot, cutting down century-old trees. Alina's heart broke seeing asphalt where flowers once grew. But she had a secret. She was a consultant for the Department of Agriculture. With reports, she proved that Trees were protected. The twist: the HOA was forced to restore the garden and pay $120,000 in damages. Alina turned the space into a botanical education center, and the HOA now sweeps the leaves as punishment. As she said, nature never forgives those who disrespect it. 7th story. In Idaho, Ben, an engineer, lived by a tranquil stream. The HOA built an illegal bridge over it to access a new subdivision, ignoring Ben's warnings about flooding. The HOA leader laughed. "Your little stream isn't our problem." Ben held his anger and pulled out his hydrological maps. He worked for the Water Management Service. The twist: the bridge violated water resource laws, and Ben redirected the stream to flood the HOA's subdivision. They paid $400,000 to rebuild, and Ben now hosts free kayaking trips on the stream. 8th story. In Texas, Miguel, a sculptor, used his shed to create art, the smell of cut wood filling the air. The HOA decided the shed was perfect for a community gym and installed equipment without permission. Miguel was called a selfish artist, but he had a trump card. He owned the neighborhood's electric company. He cut the gym's power until the HOA removed everything. The twist: Miguel turned the shed into a community art gallery, and the HOA pays to display his work. As he said, art always triumphs over arrogance. 9th story. In Florida, Anna, an activist, planned an animal sanctuary on her empty land. But the HOA used it as a dump, piling up foul-smelling trash. Anna was mocked for complaining, but she installed hidden cameras and recorded everything. With the evidence, she contacted the health department, which fined the HOA $250,000. The twist: Anna used the money to build the sanctuary, and the HOA now collects the trash as punishment. A quote from Anna went viral: "Their trash became my animal's home." 10th story. The most insane. In Wyoming, Laura, a farmer, woke to birdsong on her farm, but the HOA built a private helipad on her land, claiming it was underused. They destroyed crops, and the noise of helicopters drove animals away. Laura tried to negotiate but was humiliated. Then she opened her grandfather's old safe. Guess what she found? The farm sat on a natural gas reserve, and Laura owned the mineral rights. She contacted an energy company, which proved the helipad was illegal. The twist: Laura earned $1.5 million in royalties, bought the HOA, and turned the helipad into an ecological park. The HOA now works as gardeners in the park, and Laura smiles every time she passes by. And there you have it, 10 stories of HOAs that invaded lives and paid dearly for it. Each of these people felt the sting of injustice, the weight of arrogance, but found a way to turn the tables with intelligence and courage. Which story hit you the hardest? Have you ever faced an HOA that went too far? Tell us in the comments, because your story could be next. If this moved you, it's because this video was meant to reach you. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell button, only if you're brave enough for more stories like these.